Okay, so both the men are here together. In a quick burst of words, I tried to explain about the stranger who needed shelter. I left out the part about him jumping through the window, because that was kind of weird. He listened, but seemed unsure. Is that so? So, what were you doing trespassing on Montague land? Ah, you must be one of the Montague family. Dorian looked at him with suspicion. No, I am Sir Grayson Dorian, friend of Helena Montague. And you still haven't answered my question. What were you doing on Chateau property? Well, I was out hunting. On foot? In the rain? Like a fool? Yes. No. I only just moved to the neighborhood. I live in the next estate a few miles away. I was hunting in my own wood, and when I must have traveled too far, I realized that I was lost and must have wandered onto someone else's property. I got down off my horse in order to try and study the terrain and see if I could figure out where I was when my horse was spooked by a flock of birds. My horse bolted, leaving me stranded in the woods, not knowing how far I was from home or what direction to turn. I just made it to the clearing when I spotted the house, and I'm afraid to admit I slipped into mud and quite twisted my ankle. I'm afraid you've caught me in a most embarrassing position, and I'm ashamed that our first meeting should be like this, miss. He turned to me and I held up my hand in greeting. Strawberry. Lady Diana Strawberry. Won't you let me take a look at your injury, Lord Violette? He graciously bowed as best as he could without putting weight on the injury. I noticed that Dorian was not too pleased. Oh, Dorian's just mad that somebody who's more handsome than him is getting all sorts of attention from our gorgeous main character. But at least he didn't try to stop me. I took the strange huntsman to the kitchen. I was hoping Charlotta would be in there, able to bandage up his leg, because even though I was willing to try, I had zero experience in that sort of thing, and I hoped that the capable Charlotta would know more than me. But unfortunately, the kitchen was empty and dark. I fumbled about in the darkness with my single candle, looking for others to light. But before I had managed to find any, I felt something under my feet, and I heard a loud crunch. I crouched to get a closer look at what I'd stepped in, and I noticed broken glass on the floor. It's a broken vase. When the light's out, I heard the sound of shattering glass, but it's odd Charlotta didn't clean up after herself. She's the maid here. It looks like it was knocked off that shelf by the window there. I looked to where Violette was pointing and noticed for the first time that one of the windows was unlatched. It rattled back and forth in the wind. Quickly, Violette noticed it too and limped over to help me close it. The latch was loose and would hardly stay, so together Violette and I tried to secure it with a bit of string. I suppose these old houses are always in need of small repairs like that. I nodded in agreement, but thought it was strange the window latch was broken. Nothing else in the house seemed to be. But I shrugged it off and chalked it up to the violent storms outside. Soon, with the aid of my companion, we'd managed to light a few more candles, and I looked around for something to bandage Violette's leg. Just then, Charlotta swept in. I wondered where she had been. She seemed surprised to find us there, almost a little flustered. I suppose the maid is not used to finding anybody else in the kitchen but herself most days. Least of all a stranger such as Violet, who appeared she's never met before. I quickly explained the situation to her and introduced her to Violet. He limped over to her the best he could and made a polite bow. My dear lady, I've injured my leg in a great fall and am in need of some assistance. Could you help us find a bandage, perhaps? But Lord Violette, you said you were injured when you slipped in the mud when I spotted you out the window. Ah, yes, indeed I did, but that is a great fall of sorts, is it not? And you know the old saying, the bigger the man, the harder the fall. I was quite sure that was not the expression at all, but I held my tongue. Besides, Violette was not exactly a large man. He was only a little taller than myself and slight of frame. How hard could he fall? Is he lying about where he came from? What did he fall from, if not his horse? I brushed it off and let Charlotta bandage up the huntsman's leg. And that is the end of chapter number 1. Chapter 2. Dying for danger or disaster or whatever it was. Lady Diana Strawberry. Since I wasn't needed there any longer, I thought I'd go outside and find Helena, maybe see if she's okay. I actually realized I hadn't seen her in hours. Almost all day, actually. I haven't seen her at all in, like, the past 2 videos. Like, is she in this game, or what? Helena had always been something of a quiet girl, needing time to herself, so it wasn't unusual for her to disappear in her room for hours at a time, so I hadn't missed her much. But it was nearly the supper hour. I thought she might want to know before coming down for dinner that there were 2 more guests in the house. I didn't want her to be caught off guard. I thought that in her current emotional state it might not be healthy for her to receive any more unexpected surprises or shocks. As far as I know, nobody checked in on her in a while anyway, so I knew she must be lonely. Dorian was downstairs, after having questioned Violette. Esme was still in the parlor, as far as I knew. Charlotta was busy fixing up Violet's bandage in the kitchen. So it seemed only right to seek her out and ask her to join the house party. Besides that, I feared leaving her alone too long during her grieving process. So we know where everybody is located. This might be important to know in case somebody dies here, right? Somebody's gotta die. I went up immediately to her room and I knocked at her door. There's no answer. I like this background. This sort of looks like a hotel hallway. I knocked out again and called out softly to her, "Helena! Won't you come downstairs and join us?" Still, there was no answer. At first I thought she might be sleeping and contemplated walking away, but then there was a bright clap of lightning followed by a very sharp burst of thunder. It made me jump, and I thought there was no way she could sleep through the storm. I carefully opened her door and stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was my red candlestick inside its holder. What is her candlestick doing here? I picked it up, lit it with my white candle, and let the room fill with light, and that's when I saw her. At first, I thought she was just sleeping. Then I noticed her eyes were open, but she didn't see me. Her arm was outstretched, lifeless. She was dead. It only took me a few seconds to realize Helena, the woman who'd been like a sister to me, was now gone. Immediately, I rushed to her side. I want to find out what happened. I'm a detective. Without wasting a moment, I rushed to Helena's side. I hesitated to touch her much, fearing I might hurt her. Well, she's already dead, so I can't hurt her that much. Anyway, but it only took me a moment to realize, yep, she's dead. My first impression was definitely true. She was dead. She had no pulse. She was as pale as a ghost. I looked at her intently, trying to figure out how she died. There seemed to be no mark on her body, until I brushed back her hair and saw something I didn't notice before. Suddenly I grew frightened. I didn't want to be alone in a darkened room with Helena any longer. So there's something underneath her hair, huh? Vampire bites because she was killed by a vampire? I don't know. I ran to the door and called loudly downstairs, "Help! Someone! Anyone come!" Within moments there were footsteps up the stairs. Dorian was first in the room. "Lady Strawberry, what is wrong?" By this time I was almost hysterical. I couldn't find my voice to tell him what was wrong. He came across the room and put his arm on my shoulder. I was still holding my candle, which was the only light in the room, so I suspected he hadn't noticed Helena yet. "If you will only tell me what is wrong." "Madam, what is wrong?" "Lady Strawberry, are you hurt?" Did you have to start shouting so loudly to us? You interrupted a lovely vision I was having." "Oh dear me, what's wrong with Helena?" Esme, who was carrying a candle of her own, was the first to notice my cousin's prostrate in limp form on the bed. "Helena!" He rushed to her side and placed a hand on her back, as if trying to wake her up, but it was no use. I thought I spotted a tear in his eye as he tried without success to find a sign of life. "No, Dorian, she's gone. Nothing can help her now." Esme quickly went to his side as if to comfort him. But we must get help. I will fetch a doctor." "But sir, the water's risen. No one can leave or approach the mansion. Who knows how long it will be before we can even leave?" Dorian looked supremely annoyed at the maid as he stared her down. "You have a phone, do you not?" Charlotta returned his stare. When the blackout happened, I tried to call the electrician in town, but it wasn't working. I suppose somehow the phone lines got ruined in the storm somehow. Of course. They must have been burned by a lightning strike. Curses! So, we have no doctor, no phone lines, and no way to help Helena? The best we can do for her now is to find out what happened to her. But what can we do? We're not detectives. She looked unharmed. Could be that she had a bad heart. Her father died of a heart attack. Perhaps it was hereditary. I don't know. This is not a natural death.